Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Shahnaz, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Be here.
Let's jump straight into it. What got you into consulting, Shahnaz?
So I actually started out my career in public accounting. I, like you, started out at PwC, although at the time it was Coopers & Lybrand. So started out on the audit side for them and really always was drawn to working with clients. I love being in that position of being sort of a trusted thought partner and advisor. And over the years, I did that in a number of different ways, eventually finding my way back into getting an MBA at University of Michigan and moving into teaching in leadership and communication, as well as coaching and executive education at the University of Michigan and privately. And so what really attracted me to doing that work was my own discovery around how challenging it is to run a business. I had owned a mortgage and title company for many years and realized along the way how helpful it would have been to have someone in my corner that I could just share openly about the real trials and tribulations of business ownership. And so that drew me into the field of coaching. And as you know, sometimes there's a little overlap between coaching and consulting that happens in this work. And I like to think of myself as being someone who can help to resource the client in whatever way is needed. Sometimes that's through coaching questions. Sometimes that's through training and education and sharing resources. But I try to think about it broadly.
I like the origins, obviously, given the PwC roots,
Of course.
all that leading to what, Shahnaz? What is the problem that you help people solve exactly? What is it that you help them achieve?
Yeah, I mean, quite frequently I'm working with organizations at the C-suite level or senior leadership team, helping them think about bringing whatever the business challenges forward through people, right? And so sometimes it's in a it's in a private equity owned firm where there's mergers and acquisitions happening, where there's growth, and we're trying to build playbooks, trying to build consistency around process and driving change. Those types of challenges are really intriguing and fun for me. I like to, because of the complexity of it, I like to do the kind of work that engages the senior leaders in thinking deeply about how to do the work that they want to get done, and not just the work itself, but how they're going to lead that through people. So that's kind of the sweet spot for me.
Okay. Who is it that you solve this for? Like, do you have a specific niche, industry, specific position that you typically work with? Who benefits from all this?
Yeah, I mean, quite often it's the CEO, the CFO, if they're working with a private equity firm, it could even involve the PE firm or other leadership within the C-suite for the company, as well as sort of region level leaders, higher level leaders across the organization. Most of the work that I do is actually US based. There is other work that I've done internationally, but I would have to say the bulk of it for me is here in the US.
Okay, so that's geography. Do you have a specific industry niche that you like to work with, or is it going to be pretty much industry agnostic?
Pretty much industry agnostic. However, there are certain areas that I seem to be drawn to a little bit more. I do live in the Detroit area, so there's an opportunity for me with working in the automotive field. That's been an area that I've had a strong pull towards, but I've also done quite a lot of work in higher ed and in healthcare, uh, medical device companies, that kind of work, big pharma. Those are some of the areas that I've done a lot of work in over the years.
One could understand why. Um, so those are industries obviously where there is lots of money, right? That everybody wants to get a hold of. So what has worked for you to? Okay, sorry. Let me rewind and ask you one question before. Those
Sure.
big pharma, those companies, who is it that you need to talk to? Is it going to be CHRO, head of L&D? Is it more going to be the C-suite? Like, who makes the decision of going like, Shahnaz, we need to work with you?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I know for a lot of people it does happen through the CHRO or for the learning and development side. For me, it typically comes on the other side of the business. It's through the C-suite leaders, often the CEO. Uh, yeah, usually on that side.
That makes a lot of sense. So, what has worked for you, especially in big pharma, to get the attention of those CEOs, of those leaders in those companies? Like, how the question is, how are you getting leads, but more, how are you exercising this brand awareness, this thought leadership, so that you can reach those people and they come knocking on the door, being like, "Hey, Shahnaz, this might be of interest to us." What has worked for you, marketing wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of it comes down to reputation and experience and working with different people. I've been really, really fortunate in my connection at University of Michigan and the work in executive education that I did there, and the number of students that I was able to coach that were in these types of leadership roles across the world, truly. And so much of it has come through that relationship building, one by one, and uh, just sort of gaining the trust and confidence of individuals who then are seeking to solve different business challenges for their organizations, that reach out and share, hey, we're going through this. Is it something you could help me with? And then we're exploring from there.
Um, that does make a lot of sense. Can you walk us through what happens next to them? So you're
Mhm.
starting having those conversations, you see what can be there. How do you move from a first touch point, a referral, an introduction, into an actual conversation, a sales conversation, a an SOW, a letter of engagement? What does sales motion look like for you,
Yeah.
especially with this type of companies where we can imagine the sales cycles are going to be very, very long?
Yeah, and sometimes they are very long, and sometimes they are surprisingly very short. I have, I can think of an engagement right now that I've been talking to the leadership team for over a year about the work to be done, and it has shifted multiple times, the scope of the work and how we're going to organize it. I can also think of, a more recent engagement that, happened over the holidays, and I found myself by the end of January delivering on a pretty substantive new project for a client. So it depends, it depends on what is driving the urgency for them and what is the nature of the work to be done. Um, sometimes it's, sometimes it's a very drawn out process and sometimes it's very quick. But from a process standpoint, generally speaking, um, I'm listening for the pain points that they're going through. I'm trying to understand and share back to them my understanding of what they've articulated, and offering solutions or approaches that I've used in the past, or how I might tackle the jobs to be done that they're describing. What is it that I would envision? From there, I'll ask, would it be helpful if I were to take some of our conversation and put it into a proposal for you and give you an idea for sort of the scope of what I think this work might look like. I've gained a lot of experience of putting together proposals, and yes, I'm sure you have as well. And it is a extensive learning curve on the front end, but eventually, I think you gain some expertise in these areas, right? And you're better and better able to capture the nature of the challenge that the client is facing. And so I really try to think very systematically about, okay, what is the challenge? How can I lay this out to show them that I understand, first of all, what the challenge is, and then build out what are the solutions, what's the strategy, and what are the outcomes that we would be focusing on. Sometimes it's a back and forth a few times to iterate and to dial it in more tightly. Almost always, it's a little bit like that, right? It's not one and done, but it's a jumping off point for further dialogue. Sometimes the scope of the work expands. Sometimes the scope of the work gets tighter or it gets phased in over a longer period of time. Or there's clarity around the need for a redirection in a certain area. So it's really partnering with the client from the very beginning to draft, what does this look like and how will we achieve success together?
I love this. One thing that we discuss often on the show is how by basically keep on providing value throughout the sales cycle, right? When you think about the marketing funnel of a consulting firm, people need to know you. It's a no-brainer. They need to have a problem. They need to be aware of that problem and not necessarily the symptoms, but the root cause of the problem. They need to know the solutions available out there. That's where solution awareness comes in. Then they need to obviously be in a bit of pain, right? At least at the point where the pain is bigger than the cost of change or the cost of exploring change. And eventually they're going to buy from you if they trust you and if they consider you as an authority. So that's kind of how we like to think about that marketing funnel. And the way you describe it, I feel that you keep on building that up throughout the sales cycle, which is what we love to advocate for as well. Like, the first conversation is rarely going to lead to a closed deal right away, just because you need to keep on building that authority, that trust, relationship, and potentially even start on providing value throughout the sales cycle. Now, it's always, how do you provide enough value so that they want to buy, but not too much value so that they just get a list of to-dos and do it themselves, or find other resources to do it. So can you give us a bit the mechanisms that you use to live by that throughout the sales cycle? What does it mean to finding the best outcome so that we can work together? How do you keep on, providing this trust, authority throughout the cycle? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I like the way that you described that, Guillaume, very much. I think it's a process of discovery and curiosity and sort of following that thread through the conversation and feeding back what your understanding is, checking it, and really being able to track with them with what they're sharing. And then in that process, I really never worry about giving away too much. I just don't worry about it. It's not on my radar. Like, they're not going to get as much out of me out of 1 hour of a phone call as they will out of 6 months or a year or 3 years of working with me. So if I've given them something that's even remotely of value for them in an hour, I'm happy with that. That's great. Let them have a taste of that. Let them feel like that was really worthwhile and that they want more of it. So that's sort of my philosophy on it. I'm often, I would prefer to just generously give on the front end and throughout the process. My goal is to try to, think about, if I were sitting in their chair, what would I actually need to hear in order to feel confident that this is a good direction? So sometimes that means sharing a resource. Maybe it's just, sharing a story or an example of what's happened. But I really try to put myself in their shoes and think about what would help. If I were sitting in their spot, what would I need to feel supported?
I'm going down the rabbit hole here just because I think this is so good, Shahnaz. And a lot of people don't understand how valuable resources can be. So tell me more about this, in the sense of, everybody can think of the white papers and so on, but those case studies, those stories of other clients that you've helped, how do you build those? And how do you insert them into the marketing mix that goes with account-based marketing, right? So like, you started the conversation, you're like, okay, here are the 2-3 pieces of relevant content, stories, case study that we can send that prospect because it is particularly relevant to them. How do you think about this? How do you select which one to send? And how do you make that process, not a, in French we say, gas factory, where you're just producing lots of things, but it doesn't have any impact.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking about, as you were asking the question, I was thinking about something current that I'm working on where I actually, because the referral came from a client that was connected to the organization in a different way, not an internal person, but an external sort of partner.
Yeah.
Because of that, one of the things I was able to ask was, I was able to ask that referring source, would it be okay for me to give an example of some of the artifacts that we did? And I shared a particular one, and I asked for permission. Anonymized some information, and I was able to share it. It made it really concrete for the client to understand, oh, this is what we're actually going for. This is the kind of output that we'll be looking for. There has to be, in those situations are not every day, right? Like sometimes you have to anonymize and just give general themes, and you're capturing, testimonials and things like that from clients. But in this case, I was actually able to provide something really concrete, and I appreciated being able to do that. I like to build those kinds of trusted relationships so that when those opportunities happen, that there is the opportunity to share more concrete examples.
Yeah.
But also finding themes, right? Spending the time to reflect on what are the key learnings. If it's change management, or it's, maybe it's helping an organization through a merger or acquisition, and you're thinking about, okay, what are some of the key learnings that we want to highlight, and building that into the proposal. So helping them understand, here's what it looks like. These are the types of things. These are the types of activities. Here are the workshops. Here are the conversations. Here are the focus groups, whatever is involved.
Amen to that. I like it. I mean, we basically operate the same. That's why I'm like, yeah, that's music to my ears.
Training grounds, right?
Exactly.
Our early days.
So the interesting thing is that the magic happens for consultants when they have that acquisition, and let's call it what it is, like this sales engine well oiled. But then also when they're able to retain customers, right? At the end of the day, if you pour into a leaky bucket, you're not going to grow. At best, you're going to maintain. So talk to me about retention. What do you do to not make the most out of a client, but more keep on providing value, right? So that you can retain those customers. How do you go about that?
Yeah, in the earlier years of my career, I was selling coaching packages for X amount of months and thinking about it in a much smaller way. But over time, what I've learned is that there's much more opportunity to work at the team level and to think more strategically about the work to be done, and pull coaching and consulting and training and development into the work more broadly. So I think I've learned to have a better strategic conversation more broadly with leaders. And we're through the process, even if I'm initially hired for some slice of the work, I'm always sharing, here are some other things that I'm doing. Here are some other things that I'm hearing about as I'm working with leaders in the organization. I'm wondering if this would be helpful, or, there's a concept from the supervision world called ABC, always be contracting, right? So I'm of that mindset, but I'm not doing it for myself. It's not to be self-promoting. It's not to be thinking about, how do I get as much as I can out of this particular client? But it's really just trying to be of service and recognizing they've already spent the time and effort to build trusted relationship with me. I already have an insider's view to their organization. It's going to be more efficient for them as long as it's within, my wheelhouse, and there's good reason for partnering on it. We should have that conversation. So I'm also very happy. There are times when it makes perfect sense to me to say, hey, listen, this is not the right fit for me. I think you need someone who does this type of work. And I know someone, and I want to pull them in. So I frequently collaborate with other coaches as well. But I do have, I mean, I'll share too. Like I have clients that I work with that, basically I'm on retainer with them,
Okay.
and it's multi-year retainer and not with no end date.
Mhm.
And that feels really good. I mean, that's sort of just like an ongoing, I mean, it's like working for a company while being your own boss. And that's a beautiful place to be.
That's a perfect spot. I guess it's always I think you can build up to those relationships for sure. That's what we have with some of our clients as well. The point where it's so obvious that you're providing the value that on one side you can do a monthly retainer, and on the other side it's easily cancelable by the clients because it's very unlikely that they cancel because they keep on getting that value. But that
Right.
takes a certain point to get there, I think, because at the end of the day, that's removing part of the risk for them, but also ensuring like recurring revenues on your side, which is the best spot to be in. And you keep to, I mean, you get to stay your own boss, which is cherry on the cake.
Yes.
Obviously, I like the way you do business. Shahnaz, I think this is something that people may have felt already listening to this episode. So let me throw a little bit of a curveball question at you.
Sure.
What's your number one challenge right now? What's the one thing that you need to crack, and you know that once you crack, you're gonna take the whole thing to the next level. What would that be for you?
Yeah, so I started another business called Coachecco, which is a platform for coaches designed really to resource coaches and help provide access to some of the things that we've been talking about today. How do you learn how to put together a really killer proposal that will draw attention and you'll be able to, be very confident about what your approach was? How do you build work that goes beyond one-on-one coaching? Think about team coaching, or think about leading retreats, about training and development, thinking more robustly about the work and developing people who can do that work. I think there are a lot of really talented folks that are in the coaching space who, given the right exposure, could do a whole lot more to make an impact on organizations today. And I think in the work that we've done, there's a lot of interest in the direction, and I think it's an idea that's relatively newer in in getting started. So it's like building that community, gaining a following, and it's new to me, right? So I've been doing it in a different area, and I think part of the challenge for me is to continue to be a student of what this might look like, and doing a lot of trial and error with different approaches right now.
Thanks for sharing this. And as I always say, it's not to put you on the spot. I think this is actually super valuable because we will have consultants listening to us right now or in the replay who will be facing the same challenge. And it's always like,
Right.
interesting to hear how your peers are thinking about solving the challenge that you're yourself facing. So thanks a lot for sharing
Definitely.
this. On the other side of the coin, what's one big opportunity that you see in the next 3 to 6 months that you're excited to work on? And no, you cannot answer AI because I know it is a big opportunity, also a big threat. But so, what's that big thing that you're looking forward to work on? That new business, I guess.
Yes, the new business for sure. I think that there is a huge opportunity to share more about Coachecco and to build community. I'm working on a technology platform. We have a community platform that we're using right now, which has been really exciting and fun to work with. But we're also building a technology platform that is the whole back office of coaching in today's world. So I think it takes a lot of the structure and process that's needed and builds it out in a whole new way that I don't think our industry has ever seen before. So I'm excited about that. It's something that I've been working on for the last several months, and so more. Stay tuned. More to come on that. I'll maybe I can come back and tell you more about it next time. But we're excited to build that platform out.
Are we already calling for an encore? Is that what we're doing? Shana?
This has been fun. I would be happy to come back.
I might take you on this offer. Um, Shanaz, this was absolutely great. Thank you so much. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, potentially check out this up and coming business, where should they go?
That's great. Thank you so much. So the company that I was sharing about is Coachecco. It's Coach, C-O-A-C-H, Echo, E-C-C-O.com. So Coachecco.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Shahnaz Broucek. I don't know if it'll be appearing here on the screen. Will they see it there, or should I spell it out? What's the best way to communicate it?
I love this. You can spell it, but the simplest is probably for us just to put all the links in the description, which
Perfect.
we will do. So if you want to check Shahnaz out and what she does, head in the description. For what I'm concerned, Shahnaz, I can say one thing for sure is that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview. You're on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
Here we go. Let me make sure I find you so that I can put it in the description. But yes, here we go. You've gained at least one new connection out of this interview. Me, I've just added you. Shahnaz, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.